Good morning. This is Cheryl with Porch Talk. Um, I thought today that I would do a talk on forgiveness. How forgiveness plays a vital role in our ability to move forward and kind of emptying out our closet of whatever's rattling around in there that's bothering us. Also, it's good because you can release people as well. So, through life, things happen, and a lot of things you can't control because they're other people's actions. And a lot of times you won't even know what happened to you. You're young, or you're just put into a situation that you may not understand at the moment. You may not, you are affected by it, but as you grow, it can really affect your adult uh, behaviors and choices and things like that. So how do you get past all of that? So um, just I'm gonna share some of my own personal um, upbringing stuff, not to put a blanket on it, but just to um, let you know how I maneuvered past these really, they're horrific things that happened. And, um, what do you do? And so I was a sexually molested child for many years. And um, it, uh, I had some challenges then because I had what I would call a narcissistic mother who wasn't there. There was no physical love in my family. No hugging, no atta girl. Um, I was taught by my mother, God rest her soul, that all I had to do was be pretty. And as long as I was pretty, a man would come and take care of me. That I was never taught to be self sufficient or anything like that. I was not taught to think for myself. I was not taught to develop my brain, which you know is kind of a tragedy because I'm a pretty smart gal, and but I discounted that because what did I have to do? The only thing I had to do is be pretty, right? And boy, that got me a lot of attention and some bad attention, really, honestly. Um, I wasn't ready for interpersonal relationships with people, or especially men, or intimacy, or anything like that. But because I was an attractive young lady, I got a lot of attention, and that wields a lot of power. It really does. And to say that I was manipulative and used my beauty to get what I wanted, yes, I did. And that got me into a lot of trouble too. Bad choices, bad circumstances. But so here I am. I'm 65 now. I'm retired. I'm living my best life on my own. And um, so in retrospect, because I am retired, I've had lots of time to reevaluate and restructure and kind of look at things that happen. Pardon me, I'm gonna have a drink of my coffee, my mushroom coffee, very good for you. But yeah, through all the restructuring and all of that, I had a big ball of pain in the corner, which had really fueled my um, all of my relationships and the way I looked at life, I felt like a victim. Um, sorry, the bugs are out. You're going to see me scratching and waving and all of that. But I'm not editing. I'm just going to be me. Okay, so love me as me. Um, but yeah, so I had a lot of things to deal with, and I went through years and years and years of tragic behavior, what I would say on my part, because my spiritual side was, needless to say, I was angry and I was bitter, and I felt like God didn't love me because of what had happened to me as a child. And, and then as things evolved, I ended up marrying a very abusive man who um, was brutally abusive to me for years. And that made it even worse because I was told that the only reason I would ever be anything is because of him. And of course, I had a mother that said, just be beautiful and everything will be fine. And it wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. I was in some pretty severe physical abuse. So at one point, thank goodness, I was able to remove myself and my child from uh, that situation. And there was a lot of anger in my heart again, and not knowing how to deal with somebody that I thought that I loved, somebody I had a child with. It's the same story that abused wives go through. They take away everything and make you feel like you're crazy, like you're the crazy one and you deserved it. Oh boy. And at that time I even got re-involved in church, and um, I really felt um, I really felt my relationship with God helped me, but I needed there was more, and there was something missing, and it was my bitterness came, and then my inability to be able to forgive other people for mistakes that they had made, as well as me making the mistake unknowingly choosing a man like that. And I had to forgive myself because I exposed my children to this man who ended up, as he got older, mellowed out, became a great Christian guy, but nonetheless put me through holy hell and the kids. Um, so as I got older, I would say that I started drinking a lot and even dabbled in some drugs. I mean, I'm being honest with you, 'cause that's what we're doing here, is we're being honest. And I've been around the block a time or two, but when you have so much emotional pain for being abused as a child, and then you're going through an abusive relationship with a man, and then you have to reinvent yourself over and over and over again, you don't know what to do. I had very little education. I did graduate from high school, and then I became a cosmetologist, and that really helped me a lot, because it helped me overcome a lot of fears I have about touching people and communicating with people. So that definitely helped me. But I still had this ball of unforgiveness and anger in my heart. And I still continued to drink, and I still continued to party, and I still continued to be a pretty woman in a lot of pain, but I never showed that pain to anybody. And that's a lot of times what you do when you have anger and unforgiveness welling up in your soul. You make jokes, everything's fine, you get a smile on your face, but your headspace is all messed up. And then, as I got older and continued to have bad relationships, I found that I was attracting narcissists. I would meet people that seemed very interested in me. I'm a pretty, um, I'm a pretty exuberant personality. I love to chat with people. I love engaging about their lives, what they do, what their interests are. I want to know. I love that. I love that aspect. And I'm not shy to ask either. But I attracted some people that I thought were okay people that were not. They ended up um, using me for my smarts, for the way I looked, for the way I could speak, for basically what I could do for them. More anger, more bitterness, more drinking, more doing whatever it took to just not be me. And that's very sad. I spent a good majority of my life trying not to be me, not having to face that big ball of stuff in the corner over there, because you just have a drink. It'll go away. But you know what? You wake up in the morning, it might even be bigger because of something stupid you did the night before. I did stupid stuff like that. You know, Miss Cheryl here, I'm willing to admit my mistakes and accept responsibility for it. But a lot of my things that happened to me in life were at the hands of other people, and maybe the lack of my childhood training. And God bless my mother. I forgive her because she had a very challenging life as well. And that's where we get to forgiveness. So as you mature and you make mistakes, your children leave home, it leaves you with more time to think about your life. It leaves you with more time to think about, um, choices you made, um, thinking about other people's lives, and thinking about, you could think about what tragedies, those events were. And as I said before, I believe in that God, Jesus, the universe sends us here to learn lessons. And I think the strongest souls, which I believe I'm a very strong soul, are here to endure the hardest of lessons. And I think that it's our job as we learn those things to pass on the knowledge that we gain. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm not sad about the things that happened to me. I wish they hadn't, but they had. And that's just part of, you have to accept that. Sure, listen, I could go one of two ways. I could go, I'm a victim, I'm mad, I'm angry, why did God do this to me? Why me? Blah, blah, blah. I could do that. I could. And maybe I did it for a little while. Or I could say, I was sexually molested by an adult. How could I have been responsible for that? I had to forgive that person, which I did. And I also forgave my ex and other people that I engaged in relationships with, and I just didn't know what I was doing. A lot of it I accept responsibility for my own self, and I have to forgive my own self for making those decisions. Even though I didn't know what I was doing, I still accept full responsibility that I had a part, in all of that, and that God didn't punish me. So forgiving everybody. Sorry, the gnats are trying to get me. Forgiving myself, forgiving others was easy for me. And I learned that in forgiveness, it takes that burden off of you. It takes the anger, out of you. And then because they're the ones who have to answer for what they did. They're the ones who are getting served up the karma. And the universe takes care of it. God says vengeance is mine. And so, yes, I was vengeful. I did things. I didn't hurt people or anything weird like that, but a lot of times, I was in a I'm going to show you mood, and that never worked. It never worked. But when I truly got to a point to where I was just exhausted from carrying around the sadness and the heaviness of those burdens loaded on my back like a very heavy knapsack or backpack, whatever you want to call it. It just broke my back and it broke my soul. And I knew that the only way for me to evolve past that was to forgive them, which I did. And um, and including my mother, that was a hard one because she she made a lot of turmoil in my life, and but examining, like I say, examining what happened, I had to, examine her life, and I saw what a tragic, life she had. I had a father who was a war hero who was came back from Korea and drank himself into oblivion, and then thought his children were Korean soldiers, and then he finally just left and ran away. And as a kid, I was angry, I was bitter. People teased me that I didn't know who my daddy was. It was very painful. I had a lot of stuff like that happen to me. But when I examined and I knew what my father went through, he took a whole platoon into a battle, and only him and one other man came out. And no way in my mind could I ever wrap my head around that, to understand how that must scramble your brain. And I have a son who is a USS Cole sailor, survivor, and he was on that ship when it was bombed, and he has post-traumatic stress syndrome. I have many people in my family who are military people. Some went to battle, some didn't, but the ones that have, all have post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it's back then when my dad went through what he went through, it was suck it up buttercup. There was no help. But anyway, back to where we were, circle round about forgiveness. I had to forgive my father. And then also I came to think, how merciful and graceful the Lord is in our lives. And even though, yes, I didn't have him while I was growing up, I thought, what would my life have been like if he had stayed? When I think about somebody who's got, sorry, there's a boat going by in the river. I was just looking at it. But to try to wrap my head around what could have happened, and the tragedy that could have happened within our family, him having flashbacks and no help from the VA, and him drinking alcohol, self-medicating. I think it would have been way more tragic. So I thank God, and I forgive him. I forgive him, and I bless him, and I hope that he's found peace wherever he's at. And my daddy was a piano player. My mom was a piano player. He taught her how to play piano. There's a certain style of piano playing, and sometimes I'm somewhere and I hear that and I say, "Thank you, Daddy." "Thank you, Mom." And I know that that's their way of they're talking to me, and they're letting me know that they're still here in my life. And I just want their souls to know that despite of all the pain, we all make mistakes and we're all human. And when we make mistakes, the only thing we can do is we can forgive. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive others, because if you don't, it can eat you alive. It can make you, like I say, bitter and angry. And when you don't forgive, who are you really hurting? Who are you really hurting? Somebody does you wrong. Somebody talks about you. Somebody, somebody you love cheats on you. Whatever the case may be, it can be a million different scenarios. And you know what? You have to. It's hard. It's hard to not feel like a victim when things like that happen. But you have to understand that life happens for you. It's not here to take you down, but it can take you down, because if your headspace isn't right, that can fester into anger and bitterness, and it affects your health. It affects your relationships with people. And I don't want that. I decided many years ago that I wasn't going to live that way. And I actually had a husband who, after we got divorced, got ill with leukemia. And, he uh, wanted my forgiveness. And he asked my daughter for forgiveness. And I pretty much said, I don't have to. I forgive you. I've forgiven you for what has happened and transpired, and you don't have to worry about me. I'm fine. Everything is fine. Because it had been many, many, many years since all of that had transpired, and he was a different person. Back then, we were doing things we shouldn't have been doing. We were drinking, we were partying, and it took its toll. But I told him, and just like I will tell you, this is a very important thing, that we do things wrong, we ask for forgiveness. And if the person accepts your forgiveness and they offer, you know, theirs back and you forgive each other, you still carry the burden of the guilt and the shame of that happening in your life. Excuse me. And but they are the ones. They are the ones, even if they've shoved that off in their corner, never dealt with it. They're the ones that have to pay the price in the end. They're the ones that have to be held accountable in the court of God or universe or whomever. And when you have to make an account for your life, um, or you're tallying up, you know, the lessons that you've learned. There's a price to pay for all that we do, and so I basically said, you're gonna have to square that with your God. You're gonna have to square that with God, because I already did. I've already squared away the things that have happened. I've done things growing up as a mother who I was a single mom most of the time. I had some very bad behavior. I was not a good example. I could have been a better mother, but with the absence of all the things that have went on, and I'm not making excuses, but my inability up in here, and spiritually, I was not very spiritually guided. I was more into self-medicating all my issues. And my children, unfortunately, suffered. But my children now are 47, 41, and 31. And so we've all went through our healing phase, and I've sat with each one of them and said, I'm so sorry about, me making the bad choices that I did. And, I ask your forgiveness. And, you know, um, and my children, they have forgiven me. So that means the world to me. It allows me to carry forward, and we all have a great relationship now. But it has taken work. It has taken work because they needed to see that I'm not that person anymore who just throws caution to the wind, and you don't think about who you're hurting, and screw the world, and bitter and angerness. It's just not there anymore. And they see that and they know it. So, praise God, and that I've been able to salvage and save those relationships. So I tell you that the hardest part of forgiveness, when I first started my spiritual journey, to elevate my spiritual level, I had a hard time in the beginning because I felt dirty. I felt ashamed. I felt unworthy. I felt dirty in the eyes of God. But you know what? Again, mercy and grace goes a long ways. As God forgives us, so should we forgive other people. And I was able to lift my vibration and my spiritual level up high, and through meditation and through prayer, and listening to some good stuff on YouTube, good advice. And it helped me kind of bridge that gap. The forgiveness part, very hard. Very, very hard. Because, so, the angel and the devil sitting on your shoulder, kind of good and bad, evil, whatever you want to call it. I had that really bad. So as I was trying to elevate my soul, I had the devil, or that voice, the stealer and robber of all great hopes, your fear, your shame, whispering in my ear saying, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? You're not going to be able to forgive and forget all of that. You're not worthy of being a spiritual person or being in the presence of God. I really felt that for a long time. Finally, I had to squelch that voice and work beyond it. And I don't know how to tell you how to do that except to pray more and to love yourself more. I've been single and by myself for 5 years, and that's about how long it's taken me to really get a good grip on, I'm just a human having, a human experience, and I'm learning. And I just had a friend write me the most beautiful email of him saying, no matter how many times I fall, I'm going to get back up, and it's through the mercy and the grace of God that I can go on. And I find that so beautiful, and it's very important that, like I say, God extends that to us, that we extend that to other people as well. And forgive. You have to forgive. It unburdens you, and who knows? You know what? Somebody may have done something terrible to you, and I went back and had a business partner that broke a business contract and left us in a very hard situation with the restaurant. But I didn't blame him for getting out. But he was angry and he was bitter, and he said a lot of things, and a lot of things were done there. Well, funny, 5 years later, he ran across me on Facebook, and he lives here in the same town that I do. And we got together and talked, and I apologized for the way it went down, with him, and he told me, that I never deserved how it all went down. We lost several restaurants because of COVID, and because of a bad partner or business partner that I had. But he wasn't the business partner, and that healed my heart, and I believe it healed his too, because that was a very tough experience. He lost a lot of money, and my other business partner was his best friend, and they really loved each other. But come to find out that the business partner that stayed in the business was really just using him for his money, and he used me too. He used me for my talents. I'm a great cook. I was a person cooking. I created these restaurants from top to bottom, and he was just kind of the financial person who didn't do well. But again, I've had to forgive him. I lost a relationship. I lost businesses. I've lost family members. I've lost my own self-respect, but it was because I couldn't forgive myself. And I realized the more time I had, and the more time I spent with God, meditating and cutting out all the negativity and cutting out, things out of my life that I felt like were damaging my ability to lift my spirit, I found my way through that fog, and I realized, forgiveness was a gift from God, and it should be our gift to our fellow humans. And it's so important, because you can't, until you forgive people, it's really hard to start loving people. When you realize that we're all in this together, as they say, it is true. They're on the same journeys we are, and everybody's at different stages. And who am I to not forgive somebody because of a bad decision they made? Look at my life. Look at what I did. Look at the wave of destruction that I left behind, personal and for other people that knew me. So many people tried to help me, and they just couldn't. And it was, like I say, I think losing those businesses and partner moving out of the house that we shared, and me having to reconstruct my life and then really square off what I wanted, who I wanted in my life. Another great conversation I've had with a couple of friends about, taking the time to step back and say, what is not serving me? What are my boundaries? Who am I going to let into Cheryl's world? And, and being very picky about letting people pass through, because I want relationships with people, but I want people who have value, people who have are going in the same direction. They're going forward. And I know there comes times in life when we're standing still and having problems. Believe me, I've been there. I know what that's like. But it's their season to live. It's their season to go through. Sure, you can give advice, and I would never give my unsolicited advice. And I find that when I see somebody going through a lesson, a painful lesson that I've already been through, it's my gut instinct to reach out and to try to help them. Or when one of your kids is making a mistake, you're throwing that uh, something under them to catch them because you don't want them to fall. But in life, the biggest lessons are the ones that we learn when we fall and we hit the ground and we're on our face, where we have to ask God for forgiveness and for mercy and for, like, say, forgiveness, and then once you come to that point where you can do that and your spiritual voice no longer lets the devil sit on your shoulder, you're like, no, not today. God says I don't have to listen to you anymore, and I'm not listening. And then you just move on, and that's when your real spiritual bubble up comes. And I would say that probably in the last year is when I've really, really been able to connect to, the beauty of where I'm at and God, and just, the wonderful things my eyes have opened. Now, some people say, oh, it's because you're getting older. And yes, I will say that maturity, has a lot to do with it. But, also in the replay of the reel of your life when you have more time, because a lot of times when you're in a busy life and there's things you're doing wrong and you just go, 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 go. Sometimes going can look like you're busy, but it is an avoidance thing to keep from dealing with your headspace. Think about that. And when you find peace and you can sit with yourself, not a shrink. You don't have to go to a shrink for that. I've been to shrinks. They don't tell me anything that I don't already know.